so great to be back with you all. It's been a couple years, but I had such a great time. I was thrilled when I got the invitation, and I'm very happy for you guys to have this special night tonight. And it's just exciting to be able to talk about light. Now, what's the connection to Shrek and the Shrekstival of Lights? Well, I didn't work on the first movie, but there's a wonderful moment in that movie where Shrek reaches into his ear and pulls out a big wad of wax, and he turns it into a candle. And he brings light into the world from the wax in his ears. So talk about darkness. There's nothing darker than an ogre's ears. So if you're ever feeling like you're in a dark, dark place, you can just sort of imagine that you're in the ear of an ogre and say to yourself, what could possibly good come out of this? I'll tell you what, wax. You know, they say, if all you've got is lemons, you should make lemonade. And that's absurd, because if you can make lemonade, that means you've got about a pound of sugar. But with earwax, you can pull that out and you can make a Hanukkah candle, and you can have light. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I know a little bit about that because I have spent some time in darkness. I have worked in Hollywood. Hollywood is frequently a dark place, but it's not dark because Hollywood's dark. It's dark because there's a lot of pressure, and people who go into the arts because they have some sort of a gaping hole, usually. I had fear. I was an anxious, nervous kid. We talked about that when I was with you guys last time. And in my desperation to get away from my fear, I wandered out of the light of Judaism, because I didn't really have a Jewish education, became a born-again Christian for about 15 years. And then meeting a young Orthodox Jew in Ireland, where I was working on my first film, All Dogs Go to Heaven, I found my way slowly back to Judaism. And that light was a great thing. But what took me into showbiz was the rush and the thrill, and being able to forget for a moment how frightening the world can be. Black holes, atomic bombs, the Holocaust, all these things as a kid used to terrify me. But when I was putting on a show, I felt great. Show business was a way to ignore the darkness. But it doesn't really always work. There's a lot of pressure in show business. In fact, there was recently a scientific study that showed an actual research-based model of how the creative process usually works for most creative people. It goes a little bit like this. It starts with beginning the work. Right? You've got to begin the work. What happens after we begin the work? Well, we go from that to the next major step, which is procrastination. We do that for quite a while, and then we go to the next most important thing, which is to realize where the deadline is. It's here. That's a problem. You got a deadline coming right here, and you've been procrastinating all this time. What are you going to do? Well, the next step is obvious. Panic. We panic. And panic leads, of course, to the most important step of the creative process: all the work while crying. And this is a true model of creativity. And this is how I lived my life for the first 15 years in Hollywood. Everything that went on was terrifying because you don't have control in Hollywood. That's the beautiful thing about being a writer. Writers and farmers have this wonderful thing in common. They have no control, and they know it, because the farmer's waiting for the rain, and he's waiting for the gentle winds, he's waiting for the bees, and the writer is waiting for a good idea. What can you do as a writer? Well, you're looking for that good idea, which is gold. Why do we like gold? Because it reflects the light. It reflects the light. That's why we love it. It's shiny and it reflects the light. And that's what we're looking for, is that light. So the problem is, to find gold, what you got to do is dig. These are my partners. We go in and we dig. We dig for gold. Do we have any control over whether we'll find it? No. Same with a good idea. All we can do is go into the mine and dig. I think of myself as a miner. I go in and I dig. Every day I go in and I do the best I can. And as I have learned through some of the beautiful teachings of the Rebbe, and from all the time that I've spent with Chabad and from other rabbis, that since we don't have control, if we do a little thing called our hishtadlut, we can relax and we can say, you know what? I did my part. It's very hard to shine your light when you feel like you're in the darkness. And if you feel like you're supposed to be in control and you know you're not, it's terrifying. So what would happen is I would go in to dig. I began to learn how to let go of my need for the results and instead just say, did I dig enough today? Did I do my best today? And if I did, can I let go and trust in God and say, you know what? The results are up to Him. So I'll tell you a little story about this. The other parts of the pressure is one of the things about Hollywood, they famously ask these questions about people. These are the 4 stages of success in Hollywood. First stage, who is Dave Weiss? Second stage, get me Dave Weiss. Third stage, get me someone like Dave Weiss. And of course, the most important 4th stage, who is Dave Weiss? You're back to oblivion. And that knowledge that at any moment, no matter how hard you work, no matter how good you may be or have been, you could at any moment fall out of favor. And that pressure has driven more than one Hollywood personality to insanity. It's a scary place. So wherever you are, you can trust that the people in Hollywood have some idea of what it's like to be a teacher who has to prepare impossible lesson plans where in a place where you can't even see the students because they're behind a camera, where you have to, as a wife, figure out a way to juggle all of the budget, figure out the menu, figure out how to get the kids back and forth from their Zoom lessons, and then to stay on that little camera. It's crazy, the amount of pressure that anyone feels in this world if they don't know the tricks to survive it can be overwhelming. I'll tell you a little story about something that happened to me in Hollywood that'll give you the perfect example of this. I was once asked to work on a pitch for a project called The Cat in the Hat. Eventually, that movie was made by Mike Myers and some other folks, and I have a little bit of that story. I was invited by the company called DreamWorks, these two guys, my little friends. Hello, Stephen and Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you may know from a little thing called Quibi, which I think is over now. It was short, just like the films on Quibi. They wanted to do The Cat in the Hat. They had a little guy by the name of Tim Allen involved. Tim wanted to be the cat, and they asked my writing partner and I to come in and give a pitch for this movie. So we pitched up our story, and we came up with a great story, and it was just really wonderful about the Cat in the Hat. And Steven Spielberg himself said that he was going to fly in, and he's going to fly in on a Tuesday just to come and see us and hear our pitch about the Cat in the Hat. So we prepare for this thing. We're waiting for Steven to come. We're excited. We spend the weekend, not Saturday, and we come up with this all to get it all ready to go. And on Monday morning, we got a call that this guy had decided not to renew the rights to the book, which meant now that all the work we had done to get so far up and Steven Spielberg flying back on his private jet to hear our pitch, not going to happen. What do you got to do? I go home to have dinner with my beautiful family. Now, this is a picture, not of my family, but not a family unlike my family, except we have to make a few changes. There we go. We got to, I don't know if you guys can spot the changes here to this picture, but if it's going to be Shabbos, you got to add a couple things. You can't really see here because it got cut off, but this guy here, that's the Rebbe right there. That's where he belongs on the Shabbos table. So I'm coming home to have Shabbos. And we didn't get the job, and I don't see a job coming, and the pressure's immense, and my family's talking to me, and I'm miserable. And I can't hear what anybody's saying, and I'm not paying attention to anybody. I'm just spinning in my head, how am I going to feed these people? How am I going to pay for this roof? How am I going to keep us going? I don't know how, and I'm freaked out. Shabbos is miserable, and the family's kind of miserable because they're looking to Dad to be a source of light. Candles are on the table, but there's no light in Abba's eyes because Abba's worried. So what am I going to do? So happily, I learned a little thing from one of my Rebbes about last week's Parsha, Vayetze, right? So what happens there? We learn the magic tricks of Yaakov Avinu for how he survives. Now look, his story is fantastic because his story takes place in a little place called Haran. Haran happens to be the same gematria if you divide by 6, add a 7, and carry over a 2 as Hollywood. Identical, except for those few changes I just made. Maybe you have to add another 7 and a 3, but it's identical to Hollywood. And here's why it's identical. Because in Hollywood, there are people who will change your star. They said that you could have Jennifer Aniston, but next thing you know, you're getting Meryl Streep. Well, that's a good change. No, but not if the character's supposed to be 27. That's a problem. So they change your leading lady at the last minute, right? And so what are you going to do about that? You're going to have to work really hard for 7 more years to raise the money to do your film with another leading lady. It's a real problem. Then the weather is hot. The weather is cold. They change your contract. They change your pay. You never know what's going to happen. Haran, Hollywood, same thing. Levon, Hollywood producer, same thing. So what was Jacob's secret to keep his light going, to keep the light in his eyes shining, to stay happy and find serenity and peace? What could he do? Well, I'll tell you what he did. He did a couple clever things. The first thing he does in that parsha is get some sleep. Getting sleep is hard. We don't like to sleep. We're afraid to sleep. Why? Because when we sleep, we let go of control. What we really let go of is the illusion of control. We have no control, not over outcome. The only thing we have control over is our effort and our attitude. So he went to sleep, which was proof that he was ready to let go of control. And while he was sleeping, he had this amazing dream. And when he woke up, he said, oh my gosh, God is in this place. Imagine that. He didn't move places, but he hadn't noticed before. And isn't this true for most of our lives? We think that we're in darkness, and then we find out that something happens. And we go, wow, this is amazing. And one of the reasons, I was told, one of the reasons that we read about the Mitzrayim, the getting out of Egypt, every morning, the chariots are going, the sea is parting, the Pharaoh is chasing us. Every morning in davening, we read that. All the other parts of the prayer service in that early morning are all about praising God, praising God, praising God. This part is about how you should feel. You should be amazed and overwhelmed at what God can do. We always forget. And in my day, every day something happens. I'm like, oh no, this is a terrible thing. How's that? And then something else happens and it works out okay. And slowly over the course of my life, I'm learning to remember those amazing things. So God says, you know what? I want you to just look at this big one. Look at it every day to see what I can do. So Yaakov got some sleep. He let go of control and he realized God was in this place. Well, that's a neat thing. So what did he do next? Well, he prayed. He said a prayer and he prayed to God and he basically said, God, if you will take care of me and my family, I will be generous and I will give back a tithe. I will give 10% of everything I make. Interesting, tonight we're doing an annual event to honor some wonderful people, but also to make folks aware of the incredible life-saving work that Chabad does. Why? So that you have an opportunity to be generous and keep that light shining. Keep the lights on. That's what we want to do, right? So that's what he did. That's very clever. Let's talk for a minute about the prayer. How does prayer help you realize that God is in this place? Now, I prayed for a long time and just said the words. Now, happily, I'm a writer, so I have a good imagination, but it never dawned on me to bring my writing, I take it to work, but to bring it to prayer. You can use your imagination. Anybody that's familiar with 12-step work will know the beauty of the 11th step. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. So you know what I do now? I used to wake up in the morning and I would wake up and the first thing I would do is start worrying. I would go, oh gosh, I'm already behind. I'm already behind. I woke up and there's the list of things that have to get done today is impossible. Oh, well, what am I going to do? Well, I jump up and get going. I'll race to prayer. I'll race to breakfast. I'll race to work. I'm always behind. And then at the end of the day, I would say, ugh, I didn't get it all done. But whose crazy list is this? This is my crazy list. Is it God's list that I stop to ask God what his list is? No. God's list is start with something very special. What does he say to start with? He says start with gratitude. He says the first words I want to have come out of your mouth are the Moda Ani. And the rabbis reverse the order of that. Instead of saying Ani Moda, I give thanks, don't start with you. Don't start with me. Start with thanks. If you start your day with thanks. So I did. I just zipped it out. And I realized I wasn't believing a single word that God said. And if you want to have some sort of hope that things are going to get better and that the lights are going to stay on and the light's going to shine and get out of your darkness, you got to start believing that somebody bigger than you has your back, and that would be God. So here's how I do the Modani now. And I found out after I shared this with another Chabad house a couple of years ago, Modani was the Rebbe's favorite prayer. And it's now my favorite prayer. And here's why. Listen to these words. And I, being a writer, act them out. Okay? I act them out. I lay in the bed and I say Moda until I believe it. Moda, 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 thanks, give thanks, Moda. First 2 minutes, I don't believe it. I'm not even awake. I haven't had coffee yet. So I'm just saying the words and I'm thinking about my taxes, right? So then I get Moda. It's a wrestling match. My brain, being a writer, is like a wild horse. It is running all over the field. And my job, if I want to be happy and I want to have light, is to go out into the field and put a saddle on that horse. That means I've got to somehow get a hold of my mind. So I say Moda. This is meditation. Moda, Moda, give thanks will I unto you. And maybe you'll recognize Sam Glazer's melody. I grew up with that. Melech, give thanks will I unto you. Who? Melech. And then I imagine, and there's huge trees outside my window. I imagine the burning bush. Melech, this burning bush, Melech Chai, and then the fire from heaven is coming down to ignite the bush. I see this in my head. Melech Chai, Vikayam, and then it shoots out like one of those shock waves when they blow up a planet in Star Wars. And that energy, Melech Chai, eternal energy, shoots out and goes into me. And at that moment, I do a crazy thing. I want to have good stomach muscles. But by the way, I wanted to make sure, because we are doing Zoom, I want to make sure I was wearing pants, because you have to always be careful to wear pants, right? But I did realize later what I'm about to do, because I do these crunches, because I feel that energy coming into me. And you'll see they are pants, but they're also, they're shorts. What can I say? They're shorts. So it's California. So anyway, what I do is I say, okay, so we did thanks will I give unto you, Melechai, king who is living. Which king? The living king. Vikayam, eternal, that energy, right? And then I into my crunch. I got my shorts on. I'm like this, and I'm Vikayam. Energy is coming into my fingers and toes. I know I'm insane. This is crazy, and I'm a Hollywood writer. But you can try this at home. energy comes in, I feel it go in, Vikayam eternal, and then what happens, right? Shehekazartabi. You have placed within me. It's coming in me. What? Neshama, my neshama, nishmati, my neshama. You have placed back in me my neshama. Rabba, great is emunat. I'm sorry, bechemla, with compassion. You did it with compassion. You put this soul back in me with me. Now, have you thought about my day? A couple of years ago, I went through a very painful divorce. Was that bechemla when he gave me back my soul that morning? Was that bechemla? I lost my mother when I was young. Was that bechemla when I woke up that morning? I lost many jobs in Hollywood. Was that bechemla that morning? Was that compassion? God doesn't make mistakes. God knows what he's doing. So if he gave you back your soul, guess what? He knows that this day is the best thing for you. That means instead of waking up going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do today? How am I going to get caught up? We need to learn to rethink that and go, today is a day of compassion. God looked at the entire timeline of history and he said, the best thing for me is to wake up on this earth in this situation today. Bechemla. Rabba, why? Because great emunatecha is his faith in me. God has faith in me that I can do it. Now I can get out of bed. It takes me about 10 minutes to get out of bed because I get distracted. And my rule is I have to do the whole thing without getting interrupted by thinking about something else. And that's the power of meditation, that we train our brain. And the truth is, where you put your brain is how you're going to feel. There's all kinds of research on this. When I worry about stuff and I get freaked out, what comes? Cortisol flows into my bloodstream and I get freaked out. But if I take my brain off those things that worry me and put them on things that give me hope, like Modani, I feel better. So what happens? I get out of bed. I'm ready to go. I've done prayer. Okay. So now we did prayer. After comes prayer. We did be generous. And then it is work really hard. He does his hashtadlus. Jacob works really hard. He could quit. Lavan's an idiot. He's mean. I used to be, when I was younger, I was tempted if someone treated me badly at work, I'll steal some pencils. Or you know what I'll do? I'm gonna make a Xerox of my face. No, I'll make a Xerox of something else, right? We're angry, so we want to strike back, right? But no, Jacob doesn't do that. Yaakov instead works twice as hard. And if we, instead of getting grumpy and angry and having a pity party and feeling bad for ourselves, turn around and do the work, here's the promise from God, is we will live a life like Yaakov Avinu. We will have this light where, what does he say? What is it when he meets Esav? And that's in this week's Parsha, when he meets Esav and they run into each other. And Esav says, oh, I don't need your gifts. I have so much, which is bragging. I have so much. What does Yaakov say? No, please take it. Yesh li kol. I have everything. He had less. He had less than Esav for sure, but he had everything. And when we have that attitude, we are successful. What is success in Hollywood? If it's having the biggest box office, good luck with that. The box office is closed, ladies and gentlemen. And someone else will have the bigger box office next week. And who is Dave Weiss? That question is coming again soon. It's inevitable. So I measure success in a different way. I have to measure it in terms of the number of days, hours, or even minutes that I have the wherewithal and the concentration to appreciate the gifts that I have so that I can say Yesh li kol. And then what happens? I feel good. I feel happy. And then I have light. And I have light to share. And if we want to have light, we want to share light, we can't share it if we don't have it. We can't have it if we don't believe that God has our back. And if we get up racing off to do an endless list of things that we don't think can get done, we're in a lot of trouble. So guess what happens? A little while later, we get another call from someone who manages Robin Williams. And they say, hey, we hear you have a pitch for the Cat in the Hat. So we pitched the Cat in the Hat story to this new person, a little person by the name of Sherry Lansing. Sherry used to run, she's a big supporter of Israel, and she used to run Paramount Studios. So we prepared this pitch with Robin, took it to Sherry. She loved it, but she said, you know what? It's too rich for our diet. Are you kidding me? We got Robin Williams. We had Robin Williams. We had, oh God, I forgot the name of the director now. Big famous director. Jewish guy too, very nice. We had the top agents assigned to it. We had the rights to the Cat in the Hat back. It was all systems go. And Sherry says, yeah, it's just the budget's too high. By the time Michael Ovitz takes his 10% and Robin gets his 10% and ICM gets their 10% and we get our 10%, there was nothing left. It was too expensive for a family film and it died. And I'm like, what do you got to do? But guess what happened? I said, you know what? God's got my back, said my Morani. I know that this is compassion. God knows this is best for me. Sherry calls 3 months later and says, guys, that pitch you had was so good. Would you come in and do a little film for us called Jimmy Neutron? Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, went on to be nominated for an Academy Award. And it did so well that they offered us another job at Paramount. We ended up with offices on the lot and a 2-picture deal. And Our Cat in the Hat never got made. But the payment from all these other projects put my kids through Jewish day school. So again, God has compassion. He knows what he's up to. A little while later, I get a chance to go, okay, I got to do this again. I'm back at Shabbos dinner, and there's a new pitch. Now we get invited to go to Disney to pitch to this woman, Nina Jacobson, who got fired from Disney eventually after she had produced Pirates of the Caribbean, little series called the Pirates of the Caribbean. And there was one other massive series that Chronicles of Narnia. But she got fired because that's what happens in Hollywood. Who is Nina Jacobson? Don't feel bad for her. She went on to start up her own little company and did a little series called The Hunger Games. So she's doing fine. But back then she was running Disney and she wanted to do a little movie called Tinkerbell. So my partner and I came up with a great pitch for Tinkerbell. And we worked our little hearts out on it. And we went and we pitched and we got ready to pitch. We pitched to the producer. We got it all ready. And the weekend, the Shabbos, just before Friday afternoon, before we're going to pitch, we're meeting with the producer and my partner, my writing partner. And we have it all worked out. He goes, hey, what if we did this instead in Act 2? And I'm like, well, we can't do that. That will cause a big problem in Act 3. It'll make it all fall apart. And he went, no, I think it's really good. And the producer is like, sounds good to me. And now it's 2 against 1. And I'm furious. I want to scream and yell and say, you guys, either we're going to go in there and Nina's going to hear this and go, that doesn't work, or she's not going to notice it doesn't work. And when we go to write it, it's going to fall apart. And then she's going to be furious for having paid us and we'll never work at Disney again. And so I'm freaked out, but I got to trust Hashem. So instead of getting angry and doing that kind of stuff that I used to do, I deep breaths, got to have some faith. God knows what he's doing. There are boundaries. That's what Shabbos is about. I can't get angry. I've just got to have some faith. So I go back to dinner and I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, you got to fake it till you make it. I know I had prayed. I know I had slept. Sleep is so important for me, by the way. If I don't sleep, I'm done for. I get depressed without sleep. And people, it's an epidemic in our country. There's a lot of depression and people don't even realize the reason they're depressed is they don't sleep. God has a lot to say about sleep. King David says, right? Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. It is useless to rise up early, to retire late, to eat the bread of painful labor, for the Lord gives to his beloved even while they sleep or in their sleep, and he gives them sleep. Sleep is letting go. Sleep is our way of telling God, but no, we're on the phone. We're on the phone, we're on the iPad, and we're watching the news before we go to bed, right? Because, the Messiah may show up at any moment on one of these devices, so we can't put it down. So going to sleep is a way of letting go. I knew I'd slept. I knew I'd prayed. I'd given tzedakah. I was working as hard as I could work. I gotta just enjoy Shabbos dinner somehow. The lights are lit. What am I going to do? So I take a deep breath and I start to pretend that I'm not freaked out. Rabbis teach us, fake it till you make it. I pretend that I have light inside me. If you're in a dark place, pretend you're not. Fake it till you make it. And what happens is I'm having the dinner, I'm faking it, I'm smiling and nodding. Oh, that's oh yes, that's very, very special what you did in school today, Khan. I'm very proud of you. Oh yes, Sam, whatever you just said that I didn't hear because I'm thinking about the Cat in the Hat and Tinkerbell, that was wonderful. I didn't say those words, but that's what I'm thinking. And my wife can see me fading away. But I fake it and I fake it and I have the wine. The rabbis aren't idiots. Now, if you don't have a problem with wine, drink the wine. I say Kiddush, I drink the wine. And after about 5 or 10 minutes of faking it, getting a little further down the cup, I lighten up and I forget all about Tinkerbell. And the next thing you know, my kid is delightful. My daughter is delightful. My wife was wonderful. And everything begins light and I enjoy Shabbos. It usually takes me a good several hours. That's why I think Hashem gives us 26 hours of Shabbos, 25 hours of Shabbos, because we need the first couple of hours to decompress and start actually having Shabbos. And I have a wonderful Shabbos. On Monday morning, I'm driving to Disney and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. What's going to happen? She's going to freak out. I'm driving along in my convertible and I'm thinking, we're ruined. We're doomed. And all of a sudden I say to myself, wait a minute. I did all the right things. I did the steps. I did prayer, sleep, work hard, drink the wine. It's up to God. I got to let go. I got to let go of control. So I let go. I'm driving along and I start to cry. I start to cry at the sense of God loves me enough that this day was give me back my soul. He literally, as we say in Hollywood, he renewed my contract today. I get another day. He renewed my contract. And I start to cry. I'm weeping over the fact that whatever happens at Disney, God is bigger than it. He's bigger than it. He's gotten me through. He got us out of Egypt. That's why we read that every day. It's going to be okay. I'm crying. And then I start laughing. I start laughing because I know what's coming is going to be good. It may be a disaster at Disney, but it's going to be okay. So I'm laughing, I'm crying. And the people on the freeway that are near me are changing lanes because that dude is off his meds, right? So, and I get to Disney. I pull in. We pitch the thing. Nina listens to this. And at the end of it, she goes, guys, that's fantastic. I just have one little question for you. This little thing in Act 2, that's going to be a problem in Act 3, isn't it? And I, because I'm calm and because I'm not freaked out and because I've taken some time to actually do the modani, I'm able to have the presence of mind instead of what I used to say, I told you guys, I told you. No, I say, oh, you know, it's funny. We had two ways of doing it. We really liked both. But the other way was like this. And I explained how it had been. And she goes, oh, that's great. That works great. Bob, what do you need from me? She says to the producer. And he says, I just need you to cut a check so the guys can start writing. So she says, hey, Leonard, get accounting, start on these guys' paperwork. I want them to start writing. It worked out. I let go and God took over. That show never got made. But the salary that we got on that script paid for 2 years of my kids' Jewish education. So again, we don't have control. That's compassion, though. God knew my kids needed an education more than America needed the Tinkerbell movie. 10, 15 years later, we got hired by Disney based on that script to write a TV show based on Tinkerbell for Disney Plus 2 years ago. It's been in development ever since, hasn't gotten made yet. What do you got to do to get your project made, to find the gold, to shine the light? We don't have control over that part. All we can do is our hishtadlus, to dig. And if we do that, that in itself is the light. That's what I had learned. So I want to wrap this up by saying something really special to me. And that is that wherever you guys are, whatever darkness it may seem to be, Hashem is there and he knew all along, and that's why he gave you back your soul. And if you can take the time to actually start reprogramming your mind, because we don't spend time, we don't, in our emotions, take the time to light that light. We can find that maybe, in fact, we can pull a candle out of our weir. I'm not Shrek. Here, here's my menorah. Let me go back so you guys can see what's happening here. Let me go back over here. So this is my menorah. My partner and I wrote the Rugrats Hanukkah special, which is on every year, and that's coming up. And so even though I can't do quite the business that Shrek did, but I can sometimes actually every now and then I get lucky. And in fact, wait a second, wait. Hang on. Wait a minute, what's that? Oh, look at that. There is a candle in my ear. So here's what we find, that when we take the time to shine our light, first we have to find it. We have to find our light. But when we take the time to find our light and then shine our light, what happens is we can share our light, and guess what? It gets brighter. Look at that. 2 lights. We don't lose anything. It gets brighter. And if we spread it all the way across, it just gets brighter and brighter. I'm so glad I got to be with you guys to talk a little bit about Hanukkah and pulling candle wax out of our ears. I hope that it was a little bit helpful and not too insane. A lot of you may not want to do stomach crunches at 5:30 in the morning. I'm telling you, it's good for your stomach. It's good for your soul. The rabbi said a beautiful thing about let there be light, right? That's where it all starts. Let there be light. He said it should become light. Everything should become light. And he was speaking of the darkness in this world. Not that the darkness should be expelled by light. That's the old-fashioned way of looking at it. The Rebbe said something more beautiful. It should become light. My life has gone from darkness and fear when I was young to now every day, no matter what I'm facing. And I face challenges, folks. Like I said, marriage can be difficult. Work can be really hard. My kids are now 22 and 24, and we've had some bumpy roads along the way. It can all become light. And it starts with us looking inside and welcoming back the soul, which is light, that Hashem gave us. I want to congratulate you all on having such a wonderful evening. I especially want to thank these 2 beautiful people who are here with me tonight. They came to join me. Thank you, guys. So good to have you here. Really glad you could join me and that I could be with you in your living room through the magic of the light and the Rebbe. May we all go from light to light. Happy Hanukkah.